Live from the world headquarters of RT America in our nation's capital, this is the news with Rick Sanchez.
And hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. We're going to show you some images tonight that are kind of tough to look at. They represent what it's actually like right now to be an average citizen in some parts of China, especially places like the city of Wuhan, from where the majority of coronavirus cases have emanated. Now, you see that right there? See that image? That's an elderly man, and he's being dragged away by police in protective suits. They see him, they get out of their cars, they drag him into a paddy wagon and take him away. We've got the entire video. We're going to share it with you in just a little bit in a report by Michelle Greenstein, that story that she's been working on for us throughout the day. Now, I got another image. Take a look at this thing right here. Look at this. Here's a frustrated motorist who I guess is at her wit's end, man, and she just drives her car into a police tent set up to try and monitor and detain people who either aren't wearing their masks or are simply not abiding by emergency health and safety measures. Again, we've got the entire video, and we're going to be sharing that with you in just a bit. But as we look at these, right, we need to ask, what are the underlying conditions there right now? How difficult must it be to live in a place where no one's allowed in or out? And before we get all caught up questioning the behavior of these people, these citizens, or these police officers, I think it would behoove us to ask ourselves this: how would we act? How would you act? How would I act if we were faced with that same situation? You know, it's important to note that there's a new threshold to report tonight as well. Just a few hours ago, the coronavirus killed its 2,000th victim. 2,000. It's a number really that's still small, considering that it's infected more than 75,000. And of those, 74,000 of those, by the way, they live in China. So we're going to drill down on the images of what it's like for the people of Wuhan, right here on the news with Rick Sanchez, where we believe, yeah, it's really, it really is time to do news again. Okie doke, here's the list of the questions we think you'll be asking tomorrow. What do newly released videos from inside Wuhan tell us about living with the coronavirus? Is Turkey's Erdogan growing stronger with his threats and attacks in Syria? Well, we're going to show you what we mean by that. Are Native Americans right to be outraged over a pipeline through their land? But I want to go ahead and begin this newscast tonight with a look at these videos that are coming in from China. We've heard a lot of reporting and, frankly, a lot of rhetoric coming out of China and all over the world. But, you know, they do say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. In this case, it may be more than 1,000. Assembling this video story now for us is News with Rick Sanchez correspondent Michelle Greenstein.
In the epicenter of the novel coronavirus outbreak, the city of Wuhan, the streets are almost deserted, with just a few shops still operating. Seen here with this footage taken on Sunday. The city is on lockdown to prevent the spread of the virus, and has been since January 23rd. Even in cities like Shenzhen, the technology manufacturing hub that borders Hong Kong, almost 600 miles away from Wuhan, the streets are relatively quiet. These images, which were taken last Tuesday, show barren main roads and empty schools, with people only now slowly returning to their normal working schedules. Footage posted to Telegram last week appears to show a man arriving at work. He has his temperature read, is told to dispose of his mask in a garbage can, is given hand sanitizer and a new mask before being allowed to sign in, get credentialed, get another dose of hand sanitizer, and finally go to work. According to the Wall Street Journal, masks are mandatory in at least 2 provinces in China, including in the city of Wuhan. According to local reports, China's producing around 600,000 masks each day, as medical workers are required to change their face masks every few hours. This is footage taken Monday from inside a Shanghai factory, where workers are producing masks with the help of machines and packaging them for use throughout the country. Production is being ramped up due to panic buying, and additional workers have been recruited to meet the skyrocketing demand. In addition to mask manufacturers, business is also booming for Chinese food delivery companies, as people are now reluctant to leave their homes. And how does the food get delivered? Well, sometimes through windows, as seen in this video reportedly taken in Hubei province. Overall, demand for online vendors has surged since Beijing told the public to stay home. E-commerce giant JD says that rice sales are up 20 times from a year ago.
Before, most customers bought more electronic products, but now they buy things like rice noodles, grains and oils, and disinfectants, masks and other protective goods.
Here, one can see JD employees in masks and gloves sorting packages containing goods like food and toilet paper and spraying them with disinfectant yesterday.
We used to deliver goods to the front doors of our customers. Now, in order to protect customers and protect the safety of the residents of their entire community, we choose to deliver the goods to the entrance of the building. Customers come to the entrance to pick up their goods to prevent any direct contact.
But when the occasional in-person exchange does happen, it's facilitated with caution. Here, someone dressed as a medical worker appears to take a man in a van against his will, commanding him, "Come with us, come with us." This video was posted to Telegram with the caption, "A skirmish with firearms in Hubei province." Residents opposed blocking doors to their homes as a measure to limit the spread of the epidemic. And this video, posted to Telegram today, reportedly shows a scene in Beijing where a person, frustrated with the police presence and restrictions on movement due to the outbreak, gets into a car and plows into law enforcement officers. Back in Hubei province, where Wuhan is the capital and largest city, most buildings and roads remain blocked. While the spread of the virus is slowing overall, the situation in Hubei province remains severe. Here, Chinese military transport teams are seen getting on trucks to deliver food and supplies to people in Wuhan yesterday. The government has directed everyone to install a Wuhan Neighbors applet downloaded from WeChat for people to report if they develop a fever to the network as soon as possible. Then the system immediately locates and registers the address as a quarantine zone. The app also allows one to arrange for a car to get them to the hospital and tracks your treatment, discharge, and even your death. For the News with Rick Sanchez, Michelle Greenstein, RT.
Joining us now is Christy I, for a couple of reasons. First of all, experientially, you have a lot to say about what's going on in China culturally to make us understand this story. So let's go through these videos one at a time. Here's this first one. In this first video, Christy, we see people in offices using poles with baskets on the end. What's going on here? What does this tell us?
It shows the lengths that people are going to avoid contamination, because a lot of these workers are factory workers. So even though nobody wants to go out, some of them have to go to factories because they rely on it to fulfill their daily paycheck needs. They have to, or else they wouldn't be able to put food on the table. So these workers that work paycheck to paycheck, they actually have to go. But in order to do so, they have to take certain precautions, hence the face masks, hence the hand sanitizers every single hour, hence trying to avoid human contact with other people, so using these baskets.
That's amazing.
Also, if you look at the restaurants are taking this a full step further. They're putting up these barriers in between tables, because these restaurant owners are also losing a ton of money. These small business owners, they're losing a ton of money without customers and traffic. So what they did is they erected barriers so people can have individual little cubicles to actually eat their meals.
Let me take you through this next video, and this one's kind of heartbreaking. A little old man is sitting in a chair. Suddenly, two police officers in these suits come, drag him away and throw him in the back of what looks like a paddy wagon. My heart goes out to him. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the story behind this one was actually because the old man was not wearing a face mask while exposing himself to public. If he was confined in his own home, he can walk around without a face mask. But there has been an issued a nationwide decree that if you are out in public and there are people around you, you have to be wearing a face mask. That is mandatory in order to avoid further spread. So this is a violation of a public service.
It's a public welfare issue.
It is a public welfare
right?
and a public service.
And as horrible as it is to see it here in America, we're used to, the protection of our rights and our personal liberties.
But in this case, he is actually endangering hundreds of people if he is actually a carrier.
Understandable. Here's an interesting piece of tape. We see people here apparently attacking a police officer. Let's look at the pictures. That police officer looks like he's being attacked. Then I think we hear shots or something fired, and he's pushed back away from the step. Here, let's take a listen to it real quick, Christy. Listen. you hear that?
Yeah.
It sounds like gunfire. I don't know. Is it?
He's shooting up into the air because of the mass chaos. So what we believe is happening here is that all the entrances to the residential building is being blocked, and the residents are now protesting this. The reason for this is, again, the quarantine and the confinement. Right now, there have been instigated a mandate that all the resident buildings are quarantined to one single entrance and exit point, which means that all residents of the buildings cannot exit unless they get a time-stamped mark saying that, hey, I am allowed to exit this building at this certain time in order to get groceries, to get essentials. Otherwise, I have to be quarantined.
Complete community control of every single citizen as they leave, egress, regress, everything.
Yes, they're blocking every single entrance. So imagine like a 100-building apartment high-rise. Every single exit and entrance has been sealed off, save one.
Finally, a lady, let's look at this video. It looks to me like she's a woman. She gets really frustrated, and now she gets in her car. Police have sent up a detention camp there to monitor people. She's going to drive it right into the tent. Watch this. Watch this. She's going to drive the thing right into the tent, as Michelle had shown us before. What do you know about this, Christy?
So we would believe this is a medical tent, and this is actually one of the many checkpoints erected around the city. Again, there are many checkpoints to measure take people's temperature, see if they've developed a fever or not, hand sanitizer checkpoints, and also safety checkpoints that if you had passed all these previous checkpoints, they give you a sticker, you sign your name, you have to date to say that, hey, I have been checked, I am safe at this certain time and date. So it seems that this person is frustrated by the many checkpoints and is unable to get to a certain destination.
It's amazing.
And people are all on a tight fuse here.
Yeah, well, I imagine they would be, as we would be too. In fact, let me ask you, China's already a very rule-oriented society, but now it appears it's going through this period of even having to deal with more rules. Do you think the Chinese populace is more apt or less apt than we here as Americans if we had to deal with something like this?
They are absolutely more apt in saying that if this is for the good of the country, the good of the people, the good of the public, then we will all individually contribute in order to further the greater cause. And right now, the bigger cause is to stop the spread of coronavirus. So even though they have to be locked up, they have to be quarantined, self-quarantined, go through all these checkpoints, they're willing to go through it because it is a public good. Otherwise, in America, if you have to be quarantined to your apartment, I don't think anybody here in America will agree to that because that's a violation of so many freedoms that we kind of take for granted.
I think you're onto something there. I think it would be a little more constricting, a little more difficult for us, and that's why we're asking these questions, because what if we had to deal with these things? Christy, as usual, you're wonderful, you're smart. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know, it's funny. I also want to begin this next segment by sharing with you a piece of video that perhaps explains what is causing Turkey's Recep Erdogan to do what he's doing. Watch. Wow, huh? It's good to be the king. While Russia, the United States, Europe, and certainly Syria and many of the Middle East are wondering what Erdogan is really up to with his adventurism into Idlib. See, his supporters seem like they can't get enough of this guy. Look at him there, basking in the glow of popularity. Talk about throwing red meat to his base. So, is he on the attack to hear the sound of his own name being cheered? What's driving this guy? What's driving this guy? Joining us now, a guy who knows a lot about this, Michael Maloof, former Pentagon official, Middle East analyst, for us here on the News with Rick Sanchez. I was taken by that.
It was a Hail Caesar moment.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I can't get in the guy's head, neither can you.
No, but he has an agenda, and he's trying to appeal to his base at a time when his country basically is in turmoil politically and economically. Plus, he's trying to extend his own influence. And as we've talked about before, he's played both ends against the middle, against Trump and Putin, to the point now where he's coming to the end.
Do you think what we just witnessed there, because he's telling Putin, sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
Trump, sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
EU, sorry, buddy. Everybody, I'm doing this my way.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Is that working for him, not just inside his own parliament, but throughout the country? Does that embolden him, do you think?
Well, it does to his base, just
right.
like Trump appeals to his base.
I have to stop you for a minute. How big is his base?
Well, it's beginning to diminish a little bit because he has a substantial base, but if it shows that he's isolating the country, he may start losing. And he's beginning to do that economically.
So if he goes in, now the news today, he said within the last 8 hours that he's going in hard, going into Idlib again, but this time with bigger force potential.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys at the Pentagon use for these kinds of words, right?
Yeah.
Bigger strength, more troops. If that doesn't work out, or if he gets pushback there, that's when suddenly things at home turn sour.
Well, he's made the threat to go in at the end of the month. If by the end of the month the Syrians have not cleared out of Idlib, which is impossible because they've basically taken it over except for a few areas, then he's marching in with his troops. Now, I'm told that Turkish troops are not very pleased with this, and that's why he's been sending in all these jihadists.
This kind of adventurism, look, the Russians learned it in Afghanistan, Americans have learned it in Vietnam and in other places. You got to be careful how you tread. But let me ask you a very important question that came to mind today when we were in our editorial meeting talking about this, and I know, we're down now to about 30 seconds. How is this going to play for us as Americans, and why should we care?
Well, we should care because it could upset the entire balance, if you will, in that area. And if Erdogan pursues what he wants to do, he could actually come into direct confrontation with Russian and Syrian troops.
Wow. Now that would be interesting. That would be dangerous.
It could happen.
Right.
If he
think about it.
If he tries to call Putin's bluff, the
enthymeme is the Russians are backing Assad.
Right.
He's attacking Assad.
Right.
Thereby, he would be essentially at odds with. Okay. Let's not go there until it happens. But it's an interesting thing to talk
watch.
about. Thank you, Michael. As usual, good stuff.
Pleasure.
Now to Canada, where demonstrators continue to protest against a gas pipeline. Indigenous groups are leading the movement over the concerns, and they're very concerned about what's going to happen. They're concerned about the safety and the well-being of the community and the environment. And of course, we have this report for you tonight.
Today, Indigenous Canadians are facing off with the big oil and gas industries continuing protests against Coastal GasLink pipeline construction because the pipeline would run through Indigenous lands. The protests come after Canada approved the Trans Mountain expansion after a federal court sent it back for review last summer. Indigenous people say that these companies are reaping the last of the remaining resources in Indigenous territories, and while they have gained the support of thousands of people across the country, tens of thousands around the world, many others are concerned about oil spills and climate change.
This is something that's got to be addressed now and not later down the road. When you start putting pipes in the ground, you can't sit there and tell me that you can guarantee that those pipes are ever going to not leak.
There are consequences to this situation that are just now becoming apparent to Canadians. I'm not here to advocate for a project. I'm here to advocate for a process that makes sure that we don't fail to allow Canadians to be heard effectively through the examination, fair and full, of these types of applications.
And today, concerns are growing as officials are scrambling to find a solution because now protests are impacting business in the country. Demonstrators have blocked railway lines, disrupted transportation and commerce.
There have been over 200 trains canceled by VIA, which uses CN lines. CN has, we've been in constant contact with them. It has a major impact to the point where essentially their eastern operations have ceased at the moment. Good results with the fact that the blockade that was in Winnipeg yesterday has now been peacefully removed, and as I mentioned, also New Hazelton. So this is good news, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to resolve this situation peacefully as quickly as possible.
We are a country that recognizes the right to protest, but we are a country of the rule of law, and we will ensure that everything is done to resolve this through dialogue and constructive outcomes.
Meantime, supporters for the $7.4 billion pipeline project believe that it could bolster Canada's economy and can boost the country's struggling energy sector, one that could fuel the economy for years to come. The project twins the existing 715-mile Trans Mountain pipeline and could triple its capacity from 300,000 barrels per day to 890,000 per day. Take a look at this map right here. It would carry crude oil from Edmonton, Alberta to Burnaby, British Columbia, and increase oil tanker traffic in the area from 5 to up to 34 tankers a month. Again, Trudeau says that the expansion could ease Canada's reliance on the U.S. market and help get better prices for its resources. Reporting in New York, Trinity Chavez, RT.
Thanks, Trinity. Tonight we have a bargain offering for you. How would you like to go into space? Yeah, you. You see, it used to be that you could, if you were a billionaire with a couple $1 million lying around, you could do it. Guess what? Now, the price is starting to come down. That's right. How much? Here is RT correspondent Saya Tavenger with this out-of-this-world sale.
Rick, this historic mission will finally open up a path to making space flight possible for all who have ever dreamt of it. Now, SpaceX has announced that they will fly 4 privately paying space tourists orbit in their Crew Dragon capsule. Now, this mission will soon put tourists into the orbit about 850 miles above the surface of the Earth, and that's the same height reached by the crew of NASA's Gemini capsule in 1966. Now, the Crew Dragon is a capsule that SpaceX has been developing for NASA, and what you see here is an animation of what the actual takeoff will look like. And this spacecraft, Crew Dragon, was built to fly astronauts to the International Space Station, something that the U.S., has lacked for nearly a decade. And so these paying space customers, or tourists, as you call them, will be going through Space Adventures, and that's the company that previously flew private citizens to the International Space Station using Russian spacecraft. And Rick, the price of this ticket is not yet disclosed, and all the companies involved have been very hush-hush on other details, like what kind of preparation the tourists will have to go through. But tourists will still need to pay tens of millions of dollars, so you still need a lot of dough to get a kind of a post, an Instagram picture of yourself in space. And last year NASA even estimated that a tourist flight to the space station would cost about $58 million a person. And while there's little known about the newly announced flight, SpaceX did give some look into the inside of the Crew Dragon spacecraft that will carry the tourists around the Earth. Now, the capsule's interior has a minimalist take, you can say, with just a few seats and lots of touch screens that kind of look like iPads. So this air spacecraft will almost have a 360-degree view with lots of windows and a very sleek, custom-designed space suits and helmets that the passengers will get to wear. And the suits will be a lot less bulky than looking at like past designs, but are still pressurized, cooled, and flame-resistant, just in case there is any unplanned issue. Now, both of these tickets cost in the neighborhood of about $200,000 a pop. So we'll just have to wait to find out the exact price tag of the Crew Dragon. For News with Rick Sanchez, I'm Saya Tavenger.
Great stuff, Saya. Thanks so much. Remember, it was about a few months ago here on the News with Rick Sanchez, we brought you a story that we don't usually report on. It was a Formula 3 auto race where a horrific crash resulted in a car just, flying out of control. Flying into a building. So we later found out that the driver of this car was an 18-year-old young lady. And tonight, we got a follow-up on this. Here he is, RT America sports correspondent Steve Christakos joining us now. He just got back off a plane, so if he's a little jet-lagged, we'll have to excuse him. Please don't yawn during your report.
Try not to.
He comes back from the Laureus Awards in Berlin, Germany, where he gets to put a punctuation on this story.
Yeah, a little bit. I actually, got to sit down with the one and only Sophia Flores, who was in that car you were speaking of at the Macau Grand Prix back in 2018. So right now she's 19 years old. At the time, she was only 18 years old when she took off. Going around that turn, she's going 170 miles per hour into that barrier. So.
Did we miss it?
Yeah.
Here it is. Here it is in slow-mo, right?
It's incredible that she survived the crash.
Oh, there it is, the red car.
Yes. right into the barrier, and that nobody else was killed either. You know, they were serious injuries, but she had to actually have an 11-hour surgery to have fragments in her spine reconnected, fused back together. So she had spinal fractures all over the place.
And you'd think after watching that, she'd be completely deformed or barely alive.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, and it's amazing that actually a year later from that, she went to that very racetrack and raced around it again. And she's now continuing in Formula 3, and her goal is to eventually be in Formula 1. And I actually sat down with her ahead of the award show where, by the way, she won Comeback Athlete of the Year, well deserved. Yeah. And I asked her, I said, where'd you find the strength to come back? Take a listen.
Darn.
Well, you know, for me, the sport is my life. I started when I was 4. I enjoy driving in each race car. I enjoy driving every single meter. And I'm not going to stop because of a stupid crash, which was a lot of luck was involved for me, but also for all people involved. It just proved how safe the car is. And that was always clear for me to not be able to stop now just because of the crash. I'm going to fight for my dream, hopefully achieve it, and have success.
You know, I was once scuba diving, and I was down about 100 feet, and I ran out of air, and I almost died. And ever since that day, I haven't gone back to scuba dive. And I promised my wife I wouldn't, and I'm not. I'm afraid of it. I don't understand these people.
Right. The courage they have to just come back, and she's fearless, and she's still a teenager. It's incredible. And, you know, the people she was up against for the awards, at the Laureus Awards, the Comeback Athlete of the Year, people like tennis player Andy Murray, Kawhi Leonard, the entire Liverpool football team, soccer team over there, as we know it's soccer. But, yeah, Liverpool, I mean, it's remarkable that she took home that award, and her attitude is so...
But the time out. Who else would you give it to? I mean, you watch the crash, and you watch her get back out and race again.
Right.
And what is she, 18, 19?
She's 19 now, and she's from Munich originally, and the awards were in Berlin. So she was in her home country, of course. To win that award was special for her there. But just her attitude, and she's so down to earth. She had a great sense of humor. She was very kind, very pleasant to talk to, and just you could tell she has big dreams. She's gonna go pretty far, I think.
What was it like being around all those sports superstars? I imagine they're a little different in that environment.
Really, yeah. In that environment over there, I mean, obviously in other countries it's a lot different than here in the U.S. There's a lot of international superstars over there, and you know, it's amazing that there's such giant icons in some of the sports. We talked to people like Tony Hawk, who's a skateboard legend. Couldn't be more humble and down to earth. I can't imagine this guy, Sia Kolisi, the first black captain of the South African rugby team.
I got to stop you.
Yeah, sure.
Yesterday in your report, I was watching, and I think I saw out of the corner of my eye Boris Becker, the Wunderkind. He was there, right?
Oh, he was there, yeah.
Yes!
We definitely caught up with Boris Becker.
I thought that was him.
Yeah, he's a fun guy to talk to.
You got stuff on him later?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're out of
Boris.
time.
Yeah, right.
We can't go into the whole thing.
Maybe Friday.
Go get some rest, will you? Get some Z's, as they say, as your young people say.
Right.
That's our news. Good night. See you soon. It's time to do news again.